When you think of Old Testament punishments, your mind probably jumps to a brutal ancient world. Public stoning, executions for working on a Sunday, fire raining from heaven. It all feels a world away from our lives, right? But what if I told you that the ideas behind some of these ancient laws are still shaping our world in ways you'd never expect? Have you ever wondered how ancient texts can still have anything to say to us? The Bible is full of punishments that can sound absolutely wild, but buried inside them are ideas about justice, morality, and social order that never really went away. They just changed their clothes. To get our heads around this, theologians often sort Old Testament laws into three buckets: ceremonial, civil, and moral. Ceremonial laws, like the animal sacrifices, were seen as fulfilled in Christ. Civil laws were the national laws for ancient Israel. But the moral laws, think the Ten Commandments, are seen as timeless, reflecting a standard of right and wrong that's always been true. In this video, we're going to explore 5 biblical punishments that, in principle, have survived the ages. We'll look at the original penalty, the sin it was for, and how its core idea is surprisingly alive and kicking in our society right now. All right, first up, the punishment for blasphemy. In the ancient world, this wasn't just saying a few curse words. It was a direct, malicious attack on the honor of God, basically treason against the divine king. The book of Leviticus, chapter 24, tells a stark story. A man gets into a brawl and curses God's name. The punishment is swift and, well, severe. Leviticus 24:16 commands, "Anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord is to be put to death. The entire assembly must stone them." This wasn't a quiet execution. It was a community event. The witnesses threw the first stones, and everyone else joined in. It was a powerful public statement designed to instill fear and reverence for God's holiness. Now, you're probably thinking that stoning someone for blasphemy is locked firmly in the past. And in most of the world, you'd be right. But the principle that some speech against the sacred is a punishable offense has stuck around for thousands of years. The idea shifted from a purely religious crime to a state-enforced one. For centuries, countries all over the world had blasphemy laws to protect the dominant religion. Even today, anti-blasphemy laws are still on the books in dozens of countries, with some reports suggesting they exist in roughly 40% of nations worldwide. Their enforcement ranges from fines to the death penalty, sparking huge international debates about free speech. In Western societies, while the formal laws are mostly gone, the conflict just changed its name. Now we argue about hate speech, religious defamation, and where to draw the line between satire and incitement. We still have raging debates over cartoons, books, and social media posts that offend religious groups. So, while the punishment isn't stoning, the fundamental question of how society handles speech that attacks what it holds sacred is one that has clearly outlasted the ages. Next on our list is the punishment for sorcery, witchcraft, and divination. The Old Testament does not mince words here. Exodus 22:18 states simply, "You shall not permit a sorceress to live." Leviticus 20:27 gets even more specific. "A man or a woman who is a medium or a necromancer shall surely be put to death. They shall be stoned with stones." To the ancient Israelites, this wasn't harmless fun. It was a deep betrayal of faith. It meant turning away from God to seek power from forbidden, demonic sources. This was spiritual adultery, an act that invited corruption into the community and was met with the death penalty to protect the spiritual purity of the nation. Thankfully, executing people for witchcraft is a dark chapter of history most of the world has closed. But has the principle behind it really vanished? The core idea was to reject and purge systems of belief and power seen as fundamentally hostile to the established order. Where do we see that same impulse today? Well, think of the Red Scare in the 20th century. Simply associating with communism, a rival, hostile ideology, could get you blacklisted. Your life wasn't at risk, but your career, reputation, and freedom certainly were. And here's a modern twist, what some call cancel culture. When a public figure violates a core moral belief of a powerful social group, the reaction can be overwhelming. They get deplatformed, fired, and socially cast out. Now, this isn't about spiritual corruption in the biblical sense, but it operates on a similar social mechanic, a community purging someone who has violated one of its sacred values. The tools have changed from stones to social media, but the underlying instinct to cast out those who represent a hostile belief system is still a powerful force. Our third punishment is for adultery. The 10 Commandments are blunt. You shall not commit adultery. And this wasn't just a suggestion. Leviticus 20:10 declares, if a man commits adultery with another man's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress are to be put to death. The method was usually stoning. This sounds incredibly harsh, but it reflected the massive importance of family stability in the ancient world. Marriage wasn't just personal. It was the foundation of social order, property rights, and inheritance. Adultery was seen as a direct attack on the entire community's structure. Today, adultery is no longer a capital crime in the West, and it's been decriminalized in many countries. However, it's a different story in some parts of the world, where under Sharia law it can still be a criminal offense punishable by death. But even where it's not a crime, has the punishment really disappeared? Or did it just move from the criminal courts to the civil courts? The principle of severe consequences for adultery is alive and well. Just look at a modern divorce. It can be a form of social and financial execution. Infidelity can lead to losing your home, a huge chunk of your assets, and even custody of your children. The punishment is no longer stoning, but it can feel like financial ruin and the complete shattering of a family. And beyond the courts, the social punishment is enormous. The discovery of an affair often leads to public disgrace and the destruction of a person's reputation. Jesus himself raised the stakes, saying the root of adultery wasn't just the act, but lust in the heart. And while our legal system has moved on from physical punishment, the life-altering consequences of breaking a marriage covenant show that this is one punishment principle that has definitely outlasted the ages. This next one is maybe the most shocking to our modern minds, the death penalty for breaking the Sabbath. The command is, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And Exodus 31:14 backs it up with a terrifying warning. Whoever does any work on that day is to be put to death. And this wasn't just a hypothetical. The book of Numbers, chapter 15, gives a chilling example. A man is caught gathering wood on the Sabbath. He's brought to Moses, and God's judgment is clear. The man must die. The whole community must stone him outside the camp. A capital crime for gathering firewood? Seriously. To get it, you have to see the Sabbath as more than a day off. It was a sign of the covenant between God and Israel, a weekly declaration of trust that God, not their endless work, was their ultimate provider. To publicly defy the Sabbath was an act of rebellion. Obviously, no one gets stoned for checking work emails on a Saturday anymore, but the principle of a mandated time of rest has profoundly shaped our world. Think about the weekend. The 40-hour work week didn't come from nowhere. It was the result of long labor movements, but the seed of the idea, a rhythm of work and rest, has deep biblical roots. For a long time, blue laws restricted shopping on Sundays, a direct echo of this principle. Today, the conversation is about work-life balance and burnout. We all know that non-stop work is destructive. The punishment for breaking our modern Sabbath isn't stoning. It's chronic stress, anxiety, broken relationships, and physical sickness. Society, through both culture and sometimes law, still enforces the principle that we need protected time to rest. The penalty has just shifted from an immediate external one to a slow internal one. The final punishment on our list is for breaking the fifth commandment, honor your father and your mother. Again, this wasn't just good advice, it had teeth. Exodus 21:17 states, anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. Deuteronomy 21 lays out an even more dramatic scene for a stubborn and rebellious son. If he just won't obey his parents, they could bring him to the town elders and say, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard. The verdict? Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. You must purge the evil from among you. This law can seem terrifying, giving parents incredible power. But there were high barriers to stop abuse. It required both parents to agree and a public trial before the town elders. The point was to protect the family as the core unit of society. A son who completely rejected his parents' authority was seen as a threat to the entire social order. Today, the idea of executing a rebellious teenager is unthinkable. But the principle of society stepping in when parental authority totally collapses, that never left us. Think about what happens when a minor becomes ungovernable, through crime, addiction, or severe defiance. That's where the juvenile justice system steps in. The parents are no longer the sole authority. The elders of the town, now in the form of judges, social workers, and police, take over. The punishment isn't stoning, but it's still a form of being cast out. The child might be removed from the home and placed in foster care or juvenile detention. It's our modern, complex, and often flawed answer to the same ancient problem. What do you do when the family unit breaks down and threatens the social order? Before we wrap up, if you found this look at how biblical ideas echo through time fascinating, please help the channel out. Hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. It really helps make this all possible. So, from blasphemy to a rebellious son, we've seen how the principles behind 5 of the Bible's harshest punishments have survived. The methods, stoning, public executions, belong to the ancient world. They were for a specific people at a specific time. But the moral concerns underneath them? They never disappeared. The need to protect what's sacred, to uphold promises, to ensure social stability, to value rest, and to maintain family structure are timeless human challenges. The New Testament brought a huge shift, focusing not just on the outward act, but on the inward heart. And so, the punishments transformed, from physical and immediate to social, financial, and psychological. But the core truths they were designed to protect are still with us, reminding us that actions have consequences, and the search for justice is a permanent part of the human story.